You're listening to 101 Part-Time Jobs podcast, where I speak to bands and musicians and artists about how they've survived over the years, what they've got up to between tours and between making records, or what they were doing before starting the project that we know them for. I'm so excited that on today's episode, the 101st episode of the podcast, I'm speaking to Stu Mackenzie from King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, who recently released their new record LW, Explorations into Microtonal Tuning, Volume 3. He gave me a wonderful chat. I'm so excited that this is the 101st episode, and I hope you enjoy this chat too. I'm also excited that I've got a book coming out. It's called 101 Part-Time Jobs, Conversations with Working Musicians. You can call it a coffee book, you can call it a toilet book, and it's got a whole bunch of stories from the first 101 episodes, including anecdotes from Thurston Moore, Tim Burgess of the Charlatans, Marika Hackman, Kevin Morby, Izzy B. Phillips from Black Honey, Brian Devendorf from The National, Matt Sharp from The Rentals and formerly Weezer, Mark Bowen from Idols, and a whole bunch more. 101parttimejobs.com to go and have a look at the front cover and see some screenshots of what's inside. Cheers to East London's Signature Brew, who've been brewing beers alongside bands since 2011. They've brewed beers with Mastodon, Idols, Slaves, Sports Team, Craig Finn from The Hold Steady, who's a guest later this week on this podcast, so do subscribe. If you live in the UK and want to get some beers delivered directly to your door, you can go on signaturebrew.co.uk and using the voucher code 101podcast, all capitals, you can get 10% off that order. This is episode 101 of 101 Part-Time Jobs with Stu Mackenzie of King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard. Go well. My band and a bunch of other bands, friends' bands, were, touring a lot, playing shows to not necessarily many people, and then, between tours, everyone was just getting mad jobs, and it was like, this is silly but really funny. And then started, thinking, interviewing people from established bands that have been going for quite a long time. And I think that there's still a huge amount of level of survival when it comes to being in a band, even when you've been doing it for 5-10 years. Do you know what I mean? And I think, like, even within being in an established band where people are digging the records and people are coming to the shows and you have a label behind you and the team, you've still got 101 part-time jobs for yourself to do in the band, right?
Right. In Gizz world, we keep the team ultra small, ultra tight, ultra streamlined. Everyone's got multiple jobs. Right. I've been managing Gizz for a while. I do like the recording and the producing and writing and stuff. And to take touring away for the last 12 months has been challenging in so many ways and a blessing in so many other ways, because I love the flip side, the inverse of Gizz, which is kind of the writing and the recording and stuff. Yeah. So it's been heavy on that, and it's felt like work, especially when you can't tour and you can't do the cream, you can't do the fun stuff, the party stuff. You sort of just got to put pen to pencil, put pencil to paper, even when you're stuck at home.
Yeah. Have you been able to, in the past, you've been going for over 10 years. Has there been can you are you able to kind of compromise those two things, the fun and the party, but also the making records? Because obviously, you clearly love making records, and you can see how, they might be oil and water in some respects, touring and making records.
I think that I have two jobs. One is making records and one is being a performing musician. And I think from an outsider perspective, they have a lot of overlap. But when you're in it, they feel really different and they feel really disconnected, and they fight each other a lot, especially for your time. If I'm touring, I find it hard to write. And it's they fight each other, but when they coexist, it's the nicest thing. When I come home from a tour, I usually feel inspired to write. And when I'm writing, I'm not always, but I'm often thinking about how it will work, and I get fucking excited about making music that is going to be on a stage one day. So yeah, there's definitely an interplay thing there, but it's kind of like wearing flipping hats, wearing two hats.
Right. You got to go to a hat party. You got to have another hat.
Yeah,
another
exactly.
Hat
yeah.
Is that something that you like had to learn to do? Is that something that, you know, in your initial years in the band, was that something that, you know, you had to kind of try hard to figure out?
I think it happened slowly and over time, and you know, Gizzard wasn't any of our first bands, and it's sort of just something that we've been doing really since we're kids. Really, we've all been kind of like writing and playing and recording and jamming and you know, doing all of the things that you do, like honestly, since we're teenagers or kids or whatever. So it feels just like what you do. Like, I don't know, this guy's a cook, this person's a footballer, this woman does this particular job. I just make music.
In the music industry, there's always, you know, and the rock industry is that it seems to me like there's always going to be someone trying to get involved for their own personal goals. And I suppose that's a big part of these conversations is, you know, this podcast for me is about, you know, keeping control and being in control of your own shit, and knowing what you're doing with it. Has that been an issue for you?
I think we've been incredibly guarded, and you know, I'm loose with some things and a control freak with some things, but I'm pretty kind of controlling when it comes to the creative like element, and there are a handful of people that are let in, and that is sort of the end of story, you know what I mean? So we've been very careful about the people that we have worked with, in like, you know, be it like artist type people or recording type people, or you know, or the dark side industry type people or whatever. There's always like kind of a creative input on either side, on either flip side of that. But we just have a super small crew, and we just kind of do what we do, and sometimes it makes sense, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but you just kind of keep rolling.
That seems to be, you know, in a lot of interviews I've read with you, that, you know, you've said a few times in so many words that, you know, maybe you don't exactly know what the next step is, and, you know, you are just keep rolling. Is that something that, are you quite good at not letting that sort of anxiety get over you?
I would be lying if I said that it's easy to just kind of be free of the anxiety and the pressure of making good, objectively or subjectively good records. You know what I mean? It's a daily challenge, and you know, I often think about I often have to tell myself, especially in the early stages of a project or a record or whatever, a song or record or whatever, that it's just gonna be shit for a while. You know, it's okay. Like, it's just gonna suck for a while. You just got to push through that boundary. Like when you're writing a song and it's just a chord progression, and you're just like, this sucks. Like someone's already used this. You know what I mean? And you just gotta, it's like that daily battle of internal kind of motivation, and just, you know, again, kind of just trying to put pen to paper as often as possible, and allow it to not be the greatest thing you've ever done every single time, but just to keep busy, just to keep the wheels turning, just to keep the cogs moving and the machine oiled and the songwriting muscle flexed is sort of the way I try to look at it. And then, you know, after a little while, you can look back and think, oh shit, we made that. That's cool. How did that even happen? I don't even know. I think it just took time.
Right. I mean, does it help that you've made so many records now that when you get in a bit of a slump on an early, you know, Monday morning trying to write something, that you can look at your last record and be like, well, we fucking, you know, we did that, and we had, you know, you had a similar time during that at moments.
It makes it harder and easier simultaneously, because you know, when you make something that you're proud of, you'll always judge yourself on that, and you're always your harshest critic. I think it helps me to not try and top things, or just to try and do something different, which I think has been kind of Gizzard's MO since the start, was to not try and top ourselves at any time, just to try and do a different thing. And that's valid in itself. I mean, like, it's so much of just my thought process is just trying to keep myself motivated. It's like I'll always be attracted to the thing that's motivating, which is, usually the most fun, or the most exciting, or the most new, or the most fresh or different, or whatever.
Right, and I think that's what we as fans of King Gizzard get from it as well, is that it's always exciting, it's always something fresh, it's always new. Especially in a world that sometimes you put on a new record by a band you like, and it might sound exactly what you expect. It's really refreshing. Yeah,
that's cool too. Like, I mean, I got to say that as an Australian, AC/DC is like one of my favorite bands. Some of my favorite records are, AC/DC records. And I mean, a lot of people do say they all sound the same. They don't, but like they are all kind of within the same world. Like they're all painting the same picture, even if they're not.
Right.
They don't sound the same. I just couldn't do that to myself. Like the kind of the stress that would cause me would just be not worth it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd rather just not do that.
And there was a moment in, your career, because I guess, like, does it feel weird to say career? Is that normal to you?
I feel okay about it now. I think it would have sounded weird a little while ago. I feel like I've been doing this enough time that I feel comfortable with that. It's quite a strange word. It's cool. Let's go for it.
A big part of these conversations that I want to have are about that kind of self-reflection and seeing yourself as that, because ultimately, you've clearly done a fucking good job already. You want to continue doing that, right? And continue doing it on a more progressive level. So I suppose that maybe comes with the territory.
Thanks. That's very nice things for you to say. I feel like it's just all a fluke, and we're just we're just like we're fake. We're imposters. We don't deserve to be here. And
you've still got that. You still got that imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I think I mean, any person who puts themselves out there for their job would be lying if they said they didn't. I think. I think it just comes with the territory,
Does it still feel vulnerable when you write something?
Yeah,
or is
definitely.
that the wrong way to say it?
No, definitely. And it is that thing of trying to like maybe I should be okay with being more vulnerable, because a lot of my thought process is about trying to escape that, right? It's like, I'm going to make a record that, like, you can't judge it based on another Gizz record, because it's different. Like, don't judge me. I'm just doing my thing. I think it would be more vulnerable of me to make, to try and top one of our records, or to try and make, I don't know, the best. If I sat down and said, I'm going to write the best song I've ever written, like, I would feel vulnerable. Like, I would feel like that would be the most vulnerable thing I could do, I think.
I saw an interview on YouTube where it was some kids interviewing you. You were talking about a song that you wrote for one of the earlier records, and that was the kind of turning point where you went from a kind of, from how you saw yourself as a garage rock band into something more undefined.
Yeah, I know that interview that you're talking about. That was my dad's friend's son, who's such a nice kid. I used to teach him how to play guitar.
Brilliant.
Because that was my primary part-time job, actually, at the time, which is nice little joining thing there.
Do my job, thanks.
Yeah. The song was Head on Pill, which was from Float Along, Fill Your Lungs. I guess that was record number 3, third record, third album.
So quite a way in then, three albums,
Yeah, I think, I'm trying to think of, like, what my logic was at the time, because that interview was years ago now. So maybe I would say something different, asked the same question. That was certainly a turning point, though, that song. It's because it was the first time that we jammed on tape. and we allowed ourselves to jam on tape and to be a band, like a live band on record, I suppose. The earlier recordings are, I don't know, I guess like how most people make records. Like you rehearse, you write, the words are ready when you start recording, the parts are kind of ready. You just like get in and you like write, you record and you tape everything and you overdub everything, and then it's a song, and then you put 12 of them on the same disc and you got an album. Like that was kind of how we traditionally did things. And then that was the first time that we went into a recording extraordinarily loose, and something actually kind of half decent came out of it. And I think it just opened up Pandora's box about what music can be, because that was a song that you couldn't rehearse. It was impossible to rehearse. It just couldn't be made that way.
At the time going into the studio, did it just feel like you were unprepared? Was there even a hint of there might be something special come out of that?
Well, the way we prepared was different, and that was the kind of interesting thing to us. So there was a handful of cues, and that was the structure. And then in between, it was kind of blank canvas. So that was the thing that we hadn't done before, and we recorded quite a few takes of it, and then we just picked the best one.
Great.
Which is a way we've worked a lot since then. You know, not every record, but project to project, there's quite a lot of that. And it was it just opened up a new thing, which was nice.
And that process, within the kind of context of the jobs and the survival part of it, that process must take, it must take a long time to do. And, to give yourself time to do that, before you were touring all the time, or you were able to make it, a full-time thing, which I presume it is now. I mean, how do you go about giving yourself that time to breathe, that time to figure yourselves out? I find that like a fascinating thing.
I think the thing that you're referring to is something that we sort of just didn't do. And I think it was part of the DNA of the band was to like grow in front of everyone, like evolve in front of everyone, and make records as we go, and kind of the warts and all songwriting in the early stages was literally just the best we could do. And learning on the job and releasing records as we went, even if we were thinking, geez, this is a bit amateur, but we like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It helped that we listened to a lot of like mid-60s garage rock, which was deliberately amateur. That probably gave us a bit of juice.
It's so much personality that comes out in that stuff.
Right. I still listen to a lot of that stuff a lot, but I think it was important to us to just keep moving and to keep putting out records, and just to keep doing the best thing that we can say is actually wrong. That's kind of wasn't the point. It's just to keep being creative, and allowing that to happen in a, well, not very big, but a public sphere. Like public sphere, we weren't selling many records, that's for sure. But like a public sphere, it's like it helps to move on to the next thing. If you put it out, you can't change it. Once it's physical record, like you're done. That's it. Move to the next thing. Let's go.
In a world and when and the internet, you don't really know who's listening to those songs or records as well.
True. I think that's, I don't know. Do people think about that? I didn't think about that. That would probably make me feel weird.
Yeah, I completely understand. Because you could drive yourself crazy, couldn't you, with that stuff?
Right. Yeah. I think we were. We were definitely then, still now, but in a slightly different way, just completely doing it for ourselves. It was like going to school, just learning, like figuring out music.
Right.
Listening to records and just having no fucking idea how they were made, and over the years, sort of starting to like understand how things are constructed a little more, or it's just like we're just a little tiny blip, tiny artifact of 21st century music.
Do you kind of see different like evolutions of the band? When you look at those early days and to now, can you kind of pinpoint different moments when it changed, when your idea or the collective idea changed?
I think I can in retrospect. I think it's a lot easier to do in hindsight, because certain songs, like the one I was describing before, jump out because they influenced many other songs that we wrote afterwards, or they helped us write other songs,
right?
Or they gave us the courage to take a new risk or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, kind of defining them, I think, it is pretty tricky. And the closer, like, I'm sort of just I'm looking up into like the right corner of my room, like in thought right now. I'm like trying to I'm trying to picture I'm trying to kind of like visualize the last 10 years and think about what those touchstones were. But yeah, the earlier years were characterized by being loud and obnoxious and deliberately amateur, but trying to involve melody and groove as well.
Was there a tug of war there between, being so involved and interested and wanting to put your time into making music and producing music? Was there a tug of war between that and life stuff, educate? I know you went to uni, but other part-time jobs around there, or paying rent. Was there a friction between those?
I always put music first, like from the time that I became actually interested in it, which was, maybe age 15 or something. It just trumped everything. It was the most important thing in my life. Nothing even came close. For example, I couch surfed for 7 years because I was too much of a tight ass to pay rent, because it meant I would have to work more.
Wow.
And it would just mean I wouldn't be able to play music as much. You know what I mean?
7 years.
Yeah.
That's a long time, man.
It's a really long time to lean on your mates as well.
Yeah. You got some good friends.
Yeah. Well, half of those are current members of King Gizzard, so go figure there.
Great.
But yeah, so that was kind of those times, those uni times and stuff like that.
And was going to uni, a way to have some free time as well as have some, loan money?
I didn't think about it very hard, which sounds funny because I think I'm a fairly considered person now, but when I was 18, I definitely wasn't. I think it just felt like some of my friends were getting a proper job, right, when they finished school. Some of my friends were going on some huge like holiday or something. I didn't want to get a job because like I couldn't fathom spending 8 hours a day on something I didn't love. I didn't want to I couldn't go on holiday because I had no money, which makes sense. And so I sort of just felt like, well, I'm going to be a bit of a bum if I don't do anything. So I'm going to go to uni. So I did a music degree, which was honestly really fun. Met lots of amazing people there, which was cool. Just got by. My main job at the time was teaching guitar, which I really, really loved actually. And I would do that maybe 2-3 nights a week. It's actually a pretty decent job as a uni student, to be honest. It worked really well, and I just
You going to other people's houses?
mostly they would come to me. So I'd do it at my parents' house, or actually I worked at a music school as well, where I would roll in and teach guitar for 1-2 nights a week.
Great.
To kids
Great.
there.
They must have loved you.
Yeah, I mean, it was honestly really fun. That interview that you watched, like that kid was one of my guitar students.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and I think it actually influenced Gizz in this kind of really important way, because when you teach guitar, like a lot of the time you don't have a lot of influence over the lesson. At least not the way I taught guitar. Like I would say, okay, what do you want to learn today? And they would, bring in CD at the time, which was usually a CD at the time. And they would play it, and you just got to teach it. You just got to teach them something, and whatever their skill level is. I mean, I didn't do experts, so I wasn't good enough to teach experts or whatever, but I'd do beginner and intermediate guitar, and I would have to teach them something from the song. But I think it really helped me to understand just classic songwriting, because a lot of the time it was just classic. It was classic songs. Like that's what people wanted to learn. So
what kind of record? What kind of albums would you take in?
Well, I mean,
AC/DC?
Totally, yeah. It would be kids' choice as well, right? So it's like
brilliant, yeah.
I taught adults too, but primarily it's sort of 13 to like 17 age group. And, you got to think, what were 13 to 17 like year old kids listening to in like 2006? Like that's exactly what you think I was teaching. Class, like sort of some guitar bands from that era, but also, yeah, just, I don't know, like, yeah, AC/DC and like Lynyrd Skynyrd and stuff, and Elvis and the Beatles and Rolling Stone.
Brilliant.
So I honestly just like also just by proxy learnt an extraordinary amount of songs.
Right. Yeah. And learning those structures.
I often think about it, honestly. I actually often miss just like sitting down with a song and playing along to it. I find it harder to find the time to do that these days. I used to do it a lot. Even when I finished teaching guitar, I would just like a new record that I had found or something, or I hadn't listened to much or at all. I would sit down with the guitar with it and just sort of like understand it.
Yeah, totally.
Which was just a skill I had to acquire teaching guitar.
I wonder if a lot of people who play instruments will sit down and end up playing something that they've just played a million times before. Because I wonder if sometimes getting that ambition to learn something new can be quite hard to grasp sometimes.
Yeah, I wonder that. Yeah, I don't know. I've never, like, I'm the worst jukebox, like if you're at a party or something like that and there's a guitar, so much time it's like, Stu, come play us a song. Like, you're a musician, aren't you, dude? Come on. It's like, man, I don't know any songs. Like, I don't know how to play anything. I don't know any words. I just don't know. If you play it, I will like figure it out. And in like 15 minutes, I can play it for you. But I don't store any songs in here. Like I got other shit going on. I don't store.
So you were teaching guitar. Were you pretty happy doing that? Was life kind of all right? You weren't freaking out too much?
I think I was like too like hedonistically in my thing to freak. I was just too in my like little like, yeah, in my little world. I taught guitar from maybe, I don't know, age like 16 to like 22, 23, maybe something like that.
Right.
I taught for quite a long time.
Playing gigs alongside of that.
Yeah, like well into Gizzard times. Playing a lot of gigs, playing heaps of gigs. It was always midweek. Like it was nights midweek, so it almost always worked. It was almost never a clash. which was good.
Great.
It was the only reason I quit really was when Gizzard started touring around Australia, and I started having to miss lessons all the time, and I honestly just felt really bad about it because there are these kids who just really wanted to learn, and I would just not teach them like week after week, and I just thought I got to tap out. Like, you guys deserve better.
So there was an overlap there. I mean, you won a like an Air Award like the year after 12 Bar Brews.
Yeah, and I definitely would have been teaching guitar then.
Wow. Was that kind of a funny time where you were kind of splitting your time between the two? And like, was it, when I asked that question, I mean, like, were you kind of being like, fuck, this is funny, band's going well. I guess, what is that in between time?
Yeah, but like none of my students would have known about my band. Like I would just not, I would have been too embarrassing. Like, it just would have been, honestly, it was really embarrassing. Like, I was like their dad. Like, I was like dad figure. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not cool to them.
Yeah. That's funny.
But yeah, I was still couch surfing then. All I really had was like a car, which I saved up and bought, like one guitar lead, and one guitar amp. It's like all I had, and all of my shit was permanently in the back of my car. And that was.
Did you have any pressure? Do you get shit from your parents for that, or friends?
My parents were sort of like nomadic hippie folk. They love it.
Great. Brilliant.
I think it worked with their sort of like ideals of life as well. So I think I got it from them, actually. I think I actually inherited that one from them.
Love that. Is rent kind of expensive there?
Rent's so fucking expensive in Melbourne. I mean, yeah, I know like it is in so many places in the world. So like, let's not complain on here. But rent's so expensive, and like being a uni student and paying rent and trying to do anything else is like really hard. So yeah, I think that was kind of my logic for the just getting by thing, and just trying to find as much time as I could to write and just get involved in music and go to as many shows as possible and meet people and just be busy in that, because I knew it's what I wanted to do. I just had to like get a little bit better at it, I think.
And you can't really, even if you found a cheap place out in the sticks, out of town, I suppose, well, was it, you tell me, was it in your kind of mentality to be in town? Because, there are some great venues there. There's loads of music in Melbourne.
Right.
Was it important for you to be around that?
Well, I actually did do that. When I first, so I grew up outside of Melbourne. I moved around several places. I lived in, if there are any Australian listeners, I lived in Wangaratta, which is like a country town. Maybe it's a few hours from Melbourne. And then I moved to Anglesea, which is a tiny little like surf village, I suppose. And I went to school in Geelong, and Geelong is kind of like the miniature Melbourne sister town that's like way more shit at like everything, basically.
I went to Geelong.
Went to Geelong? What did you go to Geelong for?
My band toured with the Smith Street Band in 2015 or something.
In 15, so you would have played the Nash in 15 probably, or the Bowen Club.
I don't know. The latter sounds...
The Bowen Club.
Yeah, there were quite a lot of dates on that tour.
Very good. That's my hood. So that was where Gizzard kind of cut their teeth, was sort of just playing around Geelong and and all of our earlier bands as well. The Nash, which is now closed, sadly, the National Hotel, was like, I would just go there so much. It was just like disturbing. Like I would go there. I would go there like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night sometimes, just because there was always music there. And I had a part-time DJ. Like I had a DJ set there because like it was just something to do. Which was maybe a fortnight or something, once a fortnight or once a month. The very nice. Live sound man there, Big Al, taught me how to mix. So I did some live shows mixing bands and stuff there too, which was cool.
And people in the area were kind of responsive to music. There was a vibe where people were, music fans.
Well, there was this weird thing that happened, and I don't know if I've had enough hindsight yet, even though this was over 10 years ago now, to understand what happened. But this weird thing happened at Geelong where there was heaps of kids around our age and everyone was into like 60s garage rock. And it sounds really strange to say, but everyone, like there was like 100 people. Like it's kind of pretty small town. Like there would have been like over 100 kids in bands, and everyone was trying to like be the small faces and stuff. Like it was it was real weird and rad, and I was definitely very much part of that, which was pretty cool and very strange in hindsight. But
what years are we talking?
We're talking like 2006 to like 2012.
Nice. So people were quite young getting into that stuff.
Yeah, like I used to go to the Nash when I was like 16 and play a show and like get really, really drunk and go home, and no one ever like questioned how old I was. Like somehow.
Great.
I don't know how that worked, but it was like if you were in a band, you would like enter in the back way and get on stage that way, and then you were just kind of in, and then it was sweet somehow.
I'm trying to think back, and I don't know if I'm just putting another venue in my mind here, but there was definitely like a sort of a pub-ish venue that we played that was like that. It was a party. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, you would have played either the Nash or the Barn Club in 2015. 2015 is that what you said?
Yeah, 2015. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Actually, maybe the Nash was closed. I think you would have played the Barn Club. I reckon the Nash would have been closed by then. Anyway, around that time.
So when did you move to Melbourne then?
So I moved to Melbourne. I moved to Melbourne when I started uni. 09. And I did, just segueing back to something you said earlier, I did actually rent an ultra cheap room really far out of town, which was like, I don't know, $80 a week or something. It was like the cheapest I could get anywhere. But it was just too far away from anything. And I was like, what the fuck am I doing out here? Like, I just had to get in my car constantly, and it was just really annoying. And it took me like an hour on the train to get to uni and shit. I was like, let's not do this anymore. I may as well just like, this is stupid. So I didn't last too long there. And then I started doing the couch surfing thing.
And King Gizzard had started at that point.
King Gizzard hadn't started yet, but I guess like the early iterations of it had. I was playing in a band called The Houses, which Lucas and Cavs were part of. The King Gizzard guys. Lucas played in a band with Ambrose around this time. I also played in another band with Cookie. And I'd started going to uni and met Eric and Joey. So there was this kind of like thing happening around this time. We were all mates already. We just hadn't started a band yet. We were just doing our other different bands. You've
got your HQ, you've got that stuff there. You said earlier that you've all got kind of different roles, jobs in the band. Is that something that just kind of evolved over time? I mean, at this point, you've got to be quite organized to do what you're doing now today.
Yeah, I think I've become a pretty organized dude. I definitely didn't used to be, but I'm a pretty organized dude now. I'm kind of like, I think over the years I've like discovered that I have OCD, which I mean, probably people are going to laugh at because like, it's like everyone I've said that to is like, oh yeah, of course you do, man. But like, I'm either like exceptionally, ridiculously, specifically clean and tidy and and particular about things, or I'm just like an absolute mess. Like I'm a slob. I'm like a disgusting pile. But anyway, I've got my things that I really do obsess over and finesse and keep very, very organized. And fortunately, the band has has fallen into that category.
Right. I mean, it has to, right?
Which is good because it's my job. So yeah.
When did it become your full-time job? Do you remember? Was there a moment?
Not really. Maybe when I stopped teaching guitar, but it was funny because it felt like I had to, like I didn't really have a choice. Like I was saying, when I was teaching guitar, I honestly really liked it. And the only reason I stopped doing it was because I just wasn't around. So maybe then. But in saying that, it was like a significant drop in income. I don't know. You know what I mean? So I'm not sure. I'm not sure that qualifies.
Were there any times where, talking about that, organizational thing, were there any moments where you were like, oh fuck, I need to tighten this up. I need to buck up.
I don't know if I've like ever had enough time to think about that stuff. I think it's just sort of all fallen into place. Maybe maybe more recently, just feeling like a little bit more of an adult, and how like being an adult, and I'm a parent now, like I have a 4-month-old, and it's sort of how that interfaces with being a musician, definitely makes it feel more like a job. I think it's a good thing, actually. Like I think it's a good way to approach music, because the battle for me is taking it seriously and treating it like a job, and also feeling motivated and having fun with it, because those two things fight each other as well. Like as soon as something is your job and you take it seriously, you like want to run away and do the opposite thing.
Mm-hmm. Completely get that.
Yeah, right. So that's sort of I think you can only, I mean, for me, I'm 30. I feel like I'm just mature enough to like approach something in my life with to be able to live with sort of that light and dark,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If I'm speaking not too metaphorically, I'm sort of like getting lost in what I'm saying.
No, go for it. This is the place for it. I mean, I completely understand, because playing, from a very kind of basic level, playing music, we probably all grew up playing rock music as a subversive thing, as a garage punk thing, where we're like, nah, fuck that, we're going to do our own thing. And so when it becomes something that you kind of have to not define, but something that you have to kind of put parameters on, I suppose, or organize in a way that makes sense, that it's not going to fuck you up, that it's going to make sense for you in a positive light. That must be a journey. That must be a lesson.
It is a journey, and it feels good to get to a place where I feel comfortable with it. For example, I would frequently, when I'm finishing a record, say, I would get into a mindset often where the only way I could finish it was if I sat in front of my computer, or sometimes a guitar, sometimes I'm overdone, but usually I'm mixing. I'm usually on a computer, or I'm sometimes on a mixing desk if I'm lucky enough to be in a real studio. But I would just sit there until it was done. And I might like drink 20 cups of coffee and sit there for like 48 hours straight, but I would sit there until it's done. Like I'm just kind of that person. I'm that annoying guy, like who has to operate like that.
Right.
But I think as I've gotten older, I've become more disciplined with it, where I can switch on and switch off a little easier. It's still hard to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's the thing that you're kind of talking about, that I've maybe a newer skill, I think.
What's the latest, what was the latest story with LW, your new record? Did you find yourself owning that a bit more?
That was a weird one because, we were in lockdown when we made that. There was so much time. That's not how Gizzard usually operates. Usually we're on tour trying to finish things on the road. I'm mixing on the plane. Like it's just, it's like, race to the finish line all the time.
And you taught yourself to mix?
Yeah. I didn't do that at uni or anything like that. That's why our records sound so shit. No,
You're completely you don't need an engineer, you don't need a mixer, you're completely self-sustainable as a band, are you?
Yeah, we've worked with people over the years, but for me, it's primarily been to like learn stuff off, or just pick up skills or see how other people work, or curiosity about a studio or something. But yeah, we've made a lot of King Gizzard records have been made for literally zero. That's like it literally cost whatever the electricity bill is or whatever. I don't know.
Wow.
Like,
yeah,
a lot of our records have been made for nothing.
It might make so much sense. I mean, you must have read loads of interviews with bands over the years getting fucked over by labels or getting fucked over by studio time. Is that something that's been in the back of your mind?
Yeah, I think so. I've always been pretty cautious about that stuff. And yeah, I guess it's the control freak element of me as well, where I just would prefer to be in the driver's seat of every process. I don't know. I just like to be like that. It's a blessing and a curse.
I wonder if that goes hand in hand with how free your records can sound.
I mean, I'm drawn to loose records anyway.
Right.
So yeah, maybe that helps. Like, I'm not someone who will finesse like a hi-hat for like 2 days. I just don't do that. Like, I'm probably way more likely to record like 50 hi-hats and put them all on top of each other or something. Like, that's sort of more my process.
Brilliant. Well, Stu, thank you so much for being up for this. I thank you for your time. It's kind of a long form thing, so I appreciate that time.
I love the introspection, and you don't get this in interviews very much. It's been fun for me too.
Brilliant. Well, how do you look towards the future? I mean, I know we said earlier that I've read a few times where you can't think about the next step, but what are the next steps today? Coming out of lockdown.
We've started talking about shows, which feels fairly insane, but exciting as well. Really excited to get back into that because I think we toured fairly heavily in 2019, and I do think the show changed in this really beautiful way for us, where it got looser and jammier and freer, and it's like it was. Yeah, we were meant to do 100 shows last year, and we only did 7. We fit 7 in January and February last year, but we cancelled a lot of shows last year. So anyway, I'm really excited to do that again, and just get back into that land. And then we're just still writing. We're just out here, kind of like making records and just kind of trying to keep busy, trying to keep motivated. Eventually we'll probably run out of things to say, and then we'll disappear in a puff of smoke. I mean, I'm trying to figure out how to be a dad, so that's pretty fun. I think like dad and musicking is like, I'm full to bursting at the moment, so that's cool. Brilliant.
Well, Stu, thank you so much. I'm really it's fucking great to talk to you. It's so good.
You too, man. Yeah, great chat.
Fuck yeah. So that was Stu Mackenzie from King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard here on 101 Part-Time Jobs. Their 17th record, LW, is out now. It's an incredible listen. If you're listening to this, you already know that. Thank you for listening. 101parttimejobs.com to go check out the book that I'm releasing. That'd be awesome if you go and check that out. I'm really proud. I'm really happy to do that and bring this podcast to a kind of physical a physical form that can live on your coffee or toilet table. Cheers again for listening. Back later this week with an episode with Craig Finn from the Hold Steady. Here's Sparrer.
I've been working all day for me mate on the side, running around like a blue-ass fly. I've been working all day for me mate. Every bleeding minute I've been on the go, up and down the ladder like a fiddler's elbow. I've been working all day for me mate.
This is a Mighty Moon Media podcast.